Welcome to the fourth episode of John Huffman Speaks. I got an amazing guest right here, Mr. Mario. Mario, how's you going, man? What's going on with you?
Man, John, I'm excited to be on the show. I'm having a good time already hanging out with you pre-record.
Yeah,
and I know we're going to get into some really good stuff today.
Absolutely.
So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So listen to this, guys. I want to give you a little backstory before I start asking Mario questions. In my group coaching, I've been talking about branding. And so a while back, me and my wife went to a conference, and we really felt led to eventually have mobile home parks and give 10% of those homes to like single moms and things like that. It's always been on our heart. So I started following my man on Instagram, and I'm like, man, I love this guy. He's giving all these awesome nuggets. He's like giving this information. And then I'm training at Evolution MMA, and I look over and you're kicking the bag and doing, I'm like, is that the guy on Instagram? So man, it was awesome because I got to meet you, and it was your brand and what you're doing, which ultimately allowed me to see you for who you are and go, man, that's that guy. So
as long as you don't tell everybody how crappy I am in the gym.
No, man, no.
Yeah, it was fun meeting you in the gym, and this dude's a tough dude. So definitely getting started on the MMA stuff compared to this guy. But,
yeah. I think it's so cool. I've had Keith here, and I had another guy who's a pilot here, and I've met some really cool influential people at that gym because and we'll get into that too. It's like, man, I just think that's, guys like you and I love a challenge.
For sure.
And what better a challenge than trying to duck a punch or kick a bag 500 times or, get all sweaty and stuff. So, man, give me a little bit of background about you, man. Who is Mario and what exactly do you do, man?
Well, I just want to start out too by saying, learning about what you're doing in both business and in your ministry and your speaking and everything else, the consulting that you're doing is pretty cool. I think we've got a lot of synergy, both, in business and in our personal beliefs and things like that. So this is fun for me.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I was not lined up to be very successful in life. I barely graduated high school. I was pretty heavy into the partying and the drugs and all that kind of stuff through late junior high and high school. And, definitely not one of those kids that you'd look and go, he's going to make it in life. Yeah. Not saying that I've made it, but I'm definitely going in that direction. In my opinion, I think there's always a lot of room to grow for all of us. And, barely graduated high school, started a business age 18,
oh, wow.
Right before I graduated. I was actually on a path to go to the Marines because I didn't want to go to college. Wow. And got on the delayed entry program, which I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically saying, hey, in 6 months after you graduate, you're going to enlist and go into the Marines, because I had no other plans.
Wow.
I was just my parents were saying, you can't sit around on the couch. You're either going to go to college, you're going to get a job, whatever. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm kind of hardcore about stuff I do. Why don't I just go to the hardest military group possible and get my ass kicked?
Yes.
Which I look back and I go, man, I would have been an idiot to do that. It's like, I don't know if I could have handled it. But long story short, it was like God giving me this, fork in the road. I thought I was going to go that way. And literally the same day that I enlisted in the Marines or enlisted in that delayed entry program, I started a business with a buddy of mine, and same day. And, it was pretty cool because within those 6 months, I realized, wait a minute, this is where I'm supposed to be, running a business, being an entrepreneur. So I was able to just tell them, hey, look, I'm not going to go down that path with the military. But ever since then, I've been an entrepreneur, never went to college, and pretty much bumped my head through different industries, and thankfully found real estate as my second business, or third business, I should say. And kind of went down that path of single family and then commercial real estate.
Wow. So let's go back in, because, me and a good friend of mine, JD, we had an event about a year ago called Celebrating Our Failures.
Yeah.
And, we always hear that terminology is the path to success is on the road of failure, right?
For sure.
So you say your third business. So why the third? Are those other two, are they still in practice, or did you get uppercutted?
Oh no, I totally flopped young. And I'm thankful for it. definitely happened for me and not to me. And I look back now and I go, man, that was a really tough situation to be in at a young age.
Yeah.
But I look back and I'm like, man, if I was going to fail hard, I'm glad I did it at 19 or 20, where I had tons of runway to correct and use those lessons. I mean, my first business when I was 18 was a network marketing business. And basically was selling phone service, long distance, cell phones, things like that. Excuse me. I'll cut that. But anyways, selling long distance service, phone service, and telecom services. And then that company filed bankruptcy that we were contracted by. So I built up this large organization, 1,500 people in a couple of years isn't too bad. And then they file bankruptcy and they say, hey, well, look, we're not going to pay you your residuals anymore. Everything you built, we're keeping. They stayed in business. It was chapter 11 or 13. Yeah. So they stayed in business. They kept our customers, but stopped paying us residuals. And I was like, crap, I just worked so hard to build this business and they cut me off.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, some of my partners with that business and I went and started a real estate and mortgage company.
Okay.
And that went well. And then 2008 hit and we realized, hey, you know what? The mortgage business sucks right now. I was running the real estate brokerage, residential brokerage, and was helping investors go out and buy single family homes to rehab and sell or rent. I was like, you know what? That is really smart. I'm helping them go out and source the deal and dispo it. Why don't I just go out and buy them? My dad was in construction his whole entire life. He was a custom home builder and, did construction sales and other things. And I went to him and I said, look, I'm helping these clients buy and sell. Why don't you help with the construction? I'll do the acquisitions dispo and I'll line up capital if we need it. And that's what we did. I ended up shutting down the brokerage with my partner and we focused solely on single family flips from 2008 to 2013, which is when we started looking at commercial property. And so my first failure was the marketing business. I would say the second business that didn't go as far as I wanted it to was the brokerage and the mortgage company. And it was really market driven, kind of pushed us out of that. And so failing hard fast was pretty awesome. I mean, I went through some pretty serious financial hardship and, after that company's bankruptcy, it wiped me out.
Yeah, but the lessons you learned and the ability to forecast now, you know what I mean? There's not a book in the world that can teach you that stuff.
I thought I was invincible.
Right.
I thought I was going to retire by 21 and it was, I'm dead serious.
Awesome,
I thought I was going to retire at 21. I was building this business and I'm like, man, I made it early in life. I'm going to be done. And then when they cut me off, I was like, oh crap, things can go wrong. I need to be more conservative in my thinking. I need to look at the risks, not just the upside. Right. And I need to see around corners a little bit better than what I ever did. And so I'm a much more conservative investor and entrepreneur today than I ever was then. I was just like ignorance on fire. Nothing can go wrong.
Yeah. So and that's the beauty. Like one of my favorite sayings is build a plane or jump off the mountain and build the plane on the way down. But now I've added to that saying and I say, make sure you have people around you that are counting the parts and making sure you have the bolts.
Yeah.
Right. Because, that's what I did. It's like, hey, same things like, man, this is going to work. This is why it's going to work. And it's just like jump. And then it's like, oh, I forgot a wing. Right.
Ultimate optimist.
Right? It's like, this isn't working anymore. I consult and I coach now too. It's one of my passions just to help people. And if I can help people in ministry and get their lives together from addiction, imagine what I can do through Christ if I can help business owners and entrepreneurs know they're not alone. Because a lot of us entrepreneurs, when we fail, we're like, nobody can know about this. We're the only failures. It's like, no, you're not. Everybody fails. And it's actually a part of life. And I was telling one of my clients the other day, he was, woe is me. And I said, listen, dude, this is the ante.
Yeah.
Like when you play poker and you got to put the ante in, like this is the ante of entrepreneurism. And I was like, the faith, when you go work for someone, because he was like, man, maybe I just need to go get a safety net. And I was like, listen, you going to work for someone is just putting trust in somebody else rather than yourself. So do you trust other people less than yourself? If that's the case, then go work for someone. But just like you failed, he can fail too. You're just willing to give him the responsibility of taking that failure head on. And, so I think it's important that we know as entrepreneurs that comfort isn't it. I did a 21-day fast, and that's what the Lord showed me, because I was on this pathway of not necessarily retiring at 21, but I need to figure out these residuals so I can just buy all my time back and live this perfect life. And the Lord showed me I was seeking comfort.
Yeah.
And for a lack of better terms, I like to simplify things, is he kind of said, comfort's where we go to die.
Yeah.
That's where we go to die. The guy who retires and sits on the couch and goes from the couch to the fridge,
downhill
he
from there.
dies.
Yeah.
Right. And when I read the word, or I read any self-help book, it's always in the discomfort is where the prosperity's at.
Yeah.
And I think in Western culture, like we've tried to cohese comfort and prosperity, and they don't go together.
No.
They really don't.
You got to be pushing yourself and growing. Otherwise, you're dying. You're always going backwards if you're not going forwards.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, I mean, going into the next question was like, what made you choose real estate? We kind of touched on that. The one thing that really attracted me to you is, I believe, your cup overflows, man. Like, those are the people I want to be around, right? I want to be around people that they're not retaining information and just, being stingy with it.
Yeah.
And I love watching all your videos and stuff, because and you simplify things and you give like really good nuggets. Like I was watching one the other day about when you were just talking about like the importance of the skirt around the trailer and how to make sure that that's right for different reasons. So what made you want to start giving your knowledge that ultimately can create a competitor?
Yeah. It's interesting because I've been investing in mobile home parks for over 10 years now.
Wow.
And up until about 3 years ago, I didn't talk about what I did. I was completely, it was, I guess you could say it was probably a restricted mindset, and not an abundance mindset.
Ooh, that's
I was
good.
concerned about telling people what I was doing because I was concerned about competition. Well, if I'm going to go teach my competition, then shoot, that's less on the table for me. It's a zero-sum game, right? Like either I'm going to win or I'm going to lose. And there's a couple mentors of mine that I watched, and I eventually kind of started realizing, wait a minute, they're actually giving away every single secret they have, and they've exploded from it. And they were actually looking at it from an abundance mindset of how many people can I help, and more opportunity is going to come to me. And that was kind of the shift in mindset where I looked at social media as like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to tell people what I'm doing. If I'm going to talk about something, it's going to just be my personal life and not my business. And then I realized, wait a minute, the more people I educate, the more people are going to know, number one, how to better their life, but also they're going to want to partner with me and do more business together because I've made friends. I've enriched their life. And so I've really changed. I'd say, I think it was probably mid 2020 is when I really realized, you know what, I need to get on YouTube and I need to start a YouTube channel about what I'm doing. And then that kind of sparked Instagram and the other platforms to kind of direct to that YouTube channel, because I was realizing that a lot of people were coming to me and say, hey, I got this mobile home park. How do I do this? I'm like, well, cool. If I help them, maybe there's an opportunity to work together on it. And so it just kind of exploded from there. And then I started an education company because a lot of people were coming to me saying, okay, help me. And doing it in a structured way would allow me to impact more people and not drain me from my time. We were talking about it post-record or pre-record. We're like, look, we can go out. And we can help a bunch of people one-on-one, but we only have so much time in our day. So I figured out, look, if I can get a bunch of people together once a week, answer all their questions and work on their deals with them in a structured way, I can impact more people. And so it's kind of grown from there, and it's been pretty awesome. And I love a lot of the real estate investors that aren't getting into the mobile home park space are still learning from things that I'm learning in the mobile home park space. So I just pump it out, and you might be investing in single families or apartments or something, but there's a lot of overlap. And so I try and make it as broad as possible, but then obviously I want to hit home with the people who are looking for my space. But long story short, if I can add value to people and impact them in a positive way, then I know that it's going to come back and it's going to, make a larger impact on people in general. So I'm not afraid of creating competition.
Absolutely. You know, and I love that you said, and guys that are watching this, like rewind that and just listen to all that again, because he just gave you guys a nugget, right? The abundance mindset. And I always use the analogy of is if I hold on to stagnant water, it grows, you know what I mean? There's going to be filth in it. There's going to be mold. There's going to be mildew, whatever, this algae. But if I constantly let it flow like a river, it's crystal clear. So I just want to let that thing flow. And the other day, we've got 17 people on our group coaching call now, which is really cool. And Bryce gave them everything Bryce Lawrence with Vanguard, he's my CFO, but he gave this group everything me and him have been working on for the past 5 years, like all of our templates, like everything. And my face turned red because he didn't. And I was okay with it because I believe in the abundance mindset. But Bryce said something that was beautiful. He said, listen, guys, I see by the way John's looking right now, he's probably going to yell at me after the call, which I didn't. But he says, I'm giving this to you because you guys aren't going to use it anyways.
So true.
You know, and I was like, man, did he really hit the nail on that head, right? Because so many times we are giving people nuggets, but because they don't have the skin in the game, they haven't felt the failure, they haven't felt the pressure of that $10,000 bill for a 4-hour meeting. Yeah. You know, they're only going to implement what they think. But if they pay me 10 grand to come show them that template, they're going to treat that template like gold.
For sure.
And they're going to implement it and it's going to be used. So the abundance mindset's great, but at the same time, it's like you guys that are watching podcasts or people that listen to podcasts all day and self-help books and all that, they're thinking the same thing. Like, you guys are listening all day, but none of you put it into practice.
For sure.
You've read Atomic Habits 5 times now, and you still don't brush your teeth at the same time. You know, you've read Atomic Habits 20 times, and you still haven't been consistent in one area of your life. So I think that's why it's important too. And I believe it's favor on our lives. And, you know, as we talk about, you know, getting hit at a young age, like you got hit as an entrepreneur at a young age, I got hit in different ways, but those trials in my life really gave me, I love how you use the terminology, I can look around corners, you know, and it has given me that ability, even though some of it was street stuff, but it's like, man, people are still people.
For sure.
And another thing that you mentioned was like how, which I love is, okay, so they're not doing mobile parks, but they're still taking this information and applying it to these other areas. And that's a fundamental practice or principle that I've learned. If it works, it works. The principle is the principle. It was fabricated in this earth way before us. If it's done, no matter where you apply it, it's gonna work, right? It's like that manifestation thing. Like it's like what you eat, you speak. You know, what you speak, you eat. It's like basic 2 + 2 = 4.
It's a law.
It's a law. And that's the thing that I think, you know, puts entrepreneurs ahead of the game like yourself, when you can think, okay, even though this isn't in the same market as me, he's using laws and principles that are creating this success for him. So I can take these same laws and principles. We live at the same earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like I'm in a different universe than him. So if they're working in this universe for him, they can work in this universe for me.
A lot of the principles in business they cross industries. I mean, actually, for me to go to a manufactured housing industry event is boring.
Right.
Because we're all talking about the same thing. We're all doing the same thing. I actually have I get a lot more from going to a apartment or a storage or just a general real estate event, or even a general entrepreneurship or business event, because I can pluck things that other people are doing in other asset classes or other industries and pull them into what I'm doing. And that, I believe, is the game changer for someone who's just going to follow everybody else, or someone who's going to actually build a unique business. Yeah. And so I agree that those laws work across multiple asset classes or multiple industries. And if you can see that, and the best mastermind, the only mastermind that I kept this year, I was in several and I dropped multiple because I just had a daughter and I need to focus being home. But the only mastermind I kept is actually a local mastermind of very high level entrepreneurs in all different industries, because I see that I can get so much more from people who are in other worlds looking in and having different perspectives than just getting around a bunch of manufactured housing people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So let me show you how small this world is. So I sit down with one of my mentors, Walter Crawford.
I know, Walter.
Yeah. So I'm telling him how I'm excited about you. Or no. Let me rephrase it. He tells me, John, you got to meet this kid that's in my mastermind. I'm like, yeah, what does he do? What he starts explaining. I go, I pull up your Instagram. I go, is it this guy right here? He's like, yeah, that's the guy. I was like, we're actually doing a podcast together. So I think that's cool. And like Walter's in one of my masterminds. It's Christian based, but it's because I was like, man, what's up with this? He goes, be honest with you, John, it's the same exact mastermind, just one's geared more towards ministry. You know, we're all Christians at the table. He goes, you would just be duplicating what you're already doing. But I think it's important, and that's on my question. Like, how important is it to be around other entrepreneurs, high level entrepreneurs, and accountability in that? Like, give it, because and then you can say the cost too. I think people need to hear the cost sometimes. Like, it's not cheap.
No. So it's funny. I'll tell you a little story. For years, I can admit my ignorance. I've been stubborn many times in my career, and up until probably about 4 years ago, I thought masterminds were stupid. I'm like, look, I'm focused on building my business. You want me to come to this mastermind? Sounds super arrogant, and I just cringe thinking about it. It's like, pay me to come.
Wow.
I'll teach you what I'm doing. And that's, you know, again, I look back and I'm like, man, that was stupid.
Yeah.
But that was my mindset. I'm like, I'm too busy. I'm running a business. Why am I going to go hang out with a bunch of other people and just talk about it? And so a buddy of mine, Ray Gonzalez, good friend of mine, he's always inviting me to these different masterminds he's a part of. And he goes, Mario, I'm running a mastermind in Miami 2 weeks from now. You need to come. I'm like, man, I'm not coming to your mastermind. Like, I'm busy, whatever. He goes, look, it's $1,000 or $2,000. It was a really low entry point. And he goes, but here's the thing, it's going to charity. So what are you, too cheap?
Ooh.
You know, like, basically, what are you, too cheap to come to my mastermind? If it's going to charity? I'm like, oh man, he punched me in the nuts on that one. So I'm like, all right, I'll come to that one. So I ended up going to it, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh crap, this is a really solid group of people. These people are running pretty impressive businesses. I've been missing out. Met some really cool people. And after that, I joined like 3 masterminds and spent, like, I think last year I spent probably darn near $50K, which isn't, crazy. There's people who spend a lot more than that on them. But, for me, $50,000 a year to get in rooms with people was a lot from what I was doing in the past, of course. And I've made some of the best relationships and learned some of the most important things that I've implemented in my business, sitting with people who are further ahead than I am, hearing about what I'm doing in my business and saying, hey, you're about to make a mistake. Or, hey, have you tried this? Or, yeah, we did that and that didn't work. You should really try this. Or, hey, meet this person because they can really help you with that issue in your business. My business has changed completely. And one thing I'll tell you is that I actually avoid the free stuff now. You say, hey, come to this thing, it's free.
Y'all listen
now
to this,
I'm going,
man.
like, how good could it be if it's an open door? Because now I look at it as, look, if I'm spending money to get in the room, so other people. So I know I've got serious people sitting across the table from me that are invested in that meeting. They're going to mentally be there, and they're going to put as much in as they want to get out of it.
Come on.
And so so now I'm actually hesitant when somebody says it's free. I typically won't get involved.
Right.
And so I'm actually more picky on the groups that I get involved in because I'm looking for the higher level entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And I think one of the best parts that you said is, like, you got to understand the caliber of person that's willing to pay $1,000 to sit at a table for half a day or a day. You know what I mean? Like, there's a different caliber. Like, you're weeding out the calibers. You're weeding out the people that aren't serious, the ones that are here just because their boss made them to come. Like, I remember being in BNI, and I didn't like the groups that were BNI where the employer sent their employees because they were just there. Yeah. I wanted the decision makers. And I remember my first mastermind, and he told me $1,000. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Hold on. Like, I got to give up 8 hours of my day. And if I don't show up, I still have to pay.
Yeah.
And I've been in it now for 5 years or going on 5 years. And it's just been a game changers. I've hired coaches. I've spent the $30,000 for, and it's changed my life.
For sure.
And, I'm actually putting on an event on 420. And I'm going to talk about some basic principles, sales and marketing. And I really wanted the ticket to be high. And I got a team with me and they said, let's meet in the middle. I think we're doing like $250 a ticket, which is, it gives the newer entrepreneurs or future entrepreneurs the ability to come. So I want to touch the new guys too, but I do understand that principle. Like, a friend of mine, Lee Haight, it was $20,000 to get to this one. They meet on a yacht in Miami.
Sick.
And he was like, John, I didn't learn any. They all talked about what we already. He says, but the people that I met,
the relationships you establish are
it's
much
paid
more
for
valuable.
itself 100 times over. One of them invested in the blue collar event. He spent $700,000 on that event, and he met one of his investors on that boat that coughed up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, people don't understand, it's that cliche thing. Your network is your net worth.
So true.
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
I've taught my kids this from 2 feet high. You hang out with 4 dummies. Guess who the 5th is?
It's you.
You hang out with 4 smart people. Guess who the 5th is? So it's such a good principle, and I'm glad we brought that up, man. But let's go on to the next one here, man. So you mentioned, this is perfect. You mentioned you had 3 masterminds. Now you're the one because you had the new birth. So what does that look like? Because I know I've messed this up so many times. How do you view work-life balance? I know that's cliche, but how do you view that? And like, what, as an entrepreneur who's successful, you said, well, I haven't made it yet, but there's a lot of people that look at you and say you have.
It's all relative.
Right. It's all relative. So what do you, tell us a little bit about your thinking when it comes to family and business.
Man, that's the hardest part of this conversation.
For sure.
Because I think it's still developing, to be honest.
Amen.
I would say 10 years ago, none.
Right.
No work-life balance. It's either I'm all in or I'm all out on something. And, I would say having my first child, I'm turning 40 this year. So we're starting late. I think I'm really having new thoughts, and I'll go as far as this. I think I was selfish, before having a child. My wife and I, we go where we want, do what we want. We didn't have to think about anybody else. And I don't think from a negative standpoint we were selfish, but we just thought about what we wanted to do and we just did it. Now that we have a child, I'm 60 days in.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to realize, wait a minute, I'm overworking here. I need to start cutting back. And that's causing me to look at ways to leverage other people, and take some things off my plate, because I do realize that I can't not be a dad. You know what I mean? I can't be away from my daughter. Even though I'm working from home, I'm catching myself putting in a little bit too much work and not being with her. And so I think it's kind of helping me recalibrate a little bit and recognize where I need to get more regimented. I will say I've been pretty good about not working on weekends. So the weekends, I'm completely, I should say 90% with my family, but it's definitely getting me to think differently.
Yeah.
I would say that the work-life balance, or being able to separate the two, is probably harder than work-life integration. If I'm going to travel for business, I'm now talking to my wife about, hey, maybe you come with me. Maybe we make it a weekend vacation in the process. Yeah, I'm going to have a couple meetings, but then let's have some fun in the process to where I'm not just gone for 4 days. How can I involve you in it more? And that's going to be tricky, I think, for the next year or two with a newborn, but
it's tough.
It's something that I'm going to work towards.
Amen.
But I'm not an expert in the work-life balance thing yet. I think I've been very extreme on the work. We vacation hard. We have fun going to Europe for a month or doing things like that. But it's something that I definitely need to work on myself.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from experience, man, I went all in for 7 years and my kids have grace on me. They'll be like, Dad, you're good. You know what I mean? They're probably like, we're glad you're home because,
Yeah.
but I know I did wake up, and it's something that I've been preaching when I'm building teams and things now. And I've even got videos on Facebook and Instagram saying it is like, treat your wife like the stranger you're trying to sell.
Yes.
And I remember just recently, like I got into it when I came home and I brought work with me, and I wasn't fair. And I happened to be scrolling and my reel popped up. And like my own voice and everything was just whacking me right in the freaking noggin. And I'm like, oh my God, that hurt. But I think it's a struggle that all of us entrepreneurs have.
Yeah.
And if I have any advice to you, is like the communication. Like now, I used to look at my wife and go, I'm providing. Like we were in a 1,100 square foot home, now we're in this, like you get what you like. And I remember one day my wife was like, I want you.
Yeah.
Like I married you. I didn't marry the 7 acres. I didn't marry the pool. I didn't marry the BMW. I married you.
Yeah.
Now you can say, okay, we'll give all that away. We won't go down that road. But at the end of the day, I heard what she was saying.
Sure.
And what I learned and what you're already figuring out is I'm not the say all, right? Like if I don't, this is the worst saying in the world if I don't do it, it don't get done. Like, and all I was doing was putting so much pressure on me for lack of delegation. And it was all ego.
For sure.
And I put a lot of pressure on me that I didn't have to put on me. And I took it out on my family. So just being conscientious of it is huge, man. And now I communicate with my wife, babe, this is where we're at. This, like, we got this event coming up. Plus I'm, implementing some new systems and stuff in my business, and we're doing some different training. So I'm like, look, babe, I need some grace.
Sure.
Right. I need some grace.
Give me a little bit of grace.
Give me the next 12 weeks. Like I'll give you Saturday's locked in. It's yours.
Yeah.
Like it's done. But let me get home at dark for the next 12 weeks. Right. Yeah. So I think having that communication, and now I'm opposite of you. Now all my kids are older. I've got 22. We did the opposite. We started young, and how they survived, I don't know, by the grace of God. Oh Lord. But there's 22, 21, 19, and then our 12-year-old who's like a little mini genius because she's been taught by all the older kids. So we're experiencing what you just experienced, where me and my wife were like, oh, we're going to do a staycation. Go get us an Airbnb. We're going to take the boat to Marco, and just like we can do it. We don't need a babysitter. We don't need all that.
It's nice.
But I did. So my advice to you is communicate with your wife, be willing to let her like be real with you, even if it doesn't make sense in that moment and you don't see your perspective. Just hear her out, because man, I left her hanging with all those little hood rats, little ruckins, and when me and you were at work doing us, we can turn this phone on airplane mode. We can go sit at Starbucks and take a break. When they've got an infant up till 5 or 6, that little thing's gonna follow her in the bathroom.
It's gonna own her.
It's gonna she's not gonna be able to get rid of that thing.
Seeing that,
So they do. And again, I failed. I'm not gonna say I didn't, but I also didn't have the one up that you have. You're being mindful of it, and I think it's a principle that we all have, is like, well, you can't know it until you own it.
Sure. So
at least you know it now. So
if you don't recognize that that there should be a line, then you're going to cross it every time. So I've had some very close friends kind of come to me and say, hey, you're about to have a baby. You need to chill out.
Yeah.
Because you grind.
Right.
And that's, and I know it's counter culture right now to grind in business. And I feel like I've got good systems in my business and good people, but I still work hard. You know what I mean? And they're like, you're going to need to start thinking slightly different. And to be honest, I've even started having thoughts in my head like, man, why am I really doing this? I could stop, be done, at least take a much more casual approach at life versus pushing hard. And that's thoughts I've never had before.
Wow.
So like for someone who's having a child, even if you're in your early 20s, like it's going to change the way you think. Everybody says that. But then when you do, it's like, man, should I be thinking about an exit? Should I be thinking about, replacements? Should I be thinking about driving this thing as big as it can get? Or does that really matter anymore?
Mm.
And I think I'm going to continue to push because that's just me.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes it's just your DNA.
like you said, that beach mindset, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to get bored out of my mind if I don't continue to grow this. But at the same time, it's got me thinking a little bit more leveraged.
Yeah.
And so I still have that freedom.
Well, I think too, like, I got a mentor called, his name is Myron Golden, and he's really big on, delegation. And he's like, sometimes us grinders, we get in the mindset that we hold each other to a higher standard than we need to be held.
Yeah.
And I've done that where it's like, I can't be done yet. Like, day's only 2:00. How dare me go home and do nothing. Right. And it's like,
True.
That's not what a grinder does. But it's like, man, maybe that's just the season you're in right now, dude. But go get your chill on,
Yeah.
So it's something I've learned too. But it's in our DNA. We're go, 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 go. I mean, and sometimes I feel bad for people. They're like, man, I want what you. And it's like, this comes natural to me.
Yeah.
I don't have to force myself to be on the go and be 100 miles an hour. I don't.
Yeah.
And there's some people that need to, and guys like me and you just don't. So they have to train how to create habits to make themselves go. You and I have to train to create habits to slow the heck down.
That's so true.
And I've learned that slower is faster, man.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. I'm learning.
Yeah.
Slower is faster. And, in my business too, it's like, we got clients, and I used to think, man, if I set these boundaries, and man, I've set so many boundaries. If you heard me on a sales call today, like go to like Mediterra or whatever, and I'm looking at myself 30 years from now, and I'm building, or 20 years from whatever it is, I'm building these boundaries and I'm almost talking them out of the remodel.
Yeah.
I'm like straight up like, look, this is going to happen. But I feel like I'm rewarded now, and I'm actually getting better projects and more projects for things that I thought I would lose if I did that.
It's quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity. And I also think, we'll get to this God thing, because if you're on John Huffman Speaks, it's going to stinking happen. Like, what I've learned is when I started honoring and creating those expectations for my wife and my kids, and again, I'm not perfect, you know what I mean? I still fail. But when I started acknowledging that the world says go, 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 harder is faster, and all this, all it got me was tired.
Yeah.
A terrible marriage, terrible health, a health scare. And when I started putting my wife first and putting my family first and walking in the principles in which God has, even though it was opposite of what makes sense in the world, I tripled my profits. I'm not bull crapping.
No,
I tripled them. And I'm not working as hard. Like, I got a construction business. Like you said, I pastor, I coach, I do this podcast. My friend Vinny called me the other day. He's like, how do you do it? And I'm like, bro, I schedule everything out. But this is my passion. Like, I have time now, because I believe when I put those laws into practice, they work, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the boundaries is crucial. I mean, if you can tell a client up front what the boundaries are, they respect that.
Absolutely.
They respect it because they recognize that you are busy. And, I think a lot of times when you make yourself too accessible, it ends up showing through that you're desperate.
Amen. I had a client, because it clearly states on my thing, any COs, any change orders or additional cost of materials, a 30% margin. And she goes, now margin's not a percentage. Explain that to me. I said, well, it's 42%. A 30% margin is 42. She goes, don't you think 42% is excessive? And this is what I said. And most people are scared to tell them their margins. I'm not. It's right on my proposal. I'm making 42%. If I'm doing your job, I want 42%. But I says, I also know my overhead. My overhead's 28%.
Yeah.
So I need that 42% to get my net.
Sure.
Right? Because that's got to go to this. And for me to operate in excellence and do the right thing regardless of the cost, so I can make you happy as my client, I need 42%, which translates to a 30% margin. And she looked at me, she says, wow. She goes, I really like that answer. But again, it's just being real with people and knowing your business too, and knowing your boundaries. On my proposal, it talks about, if you call me after 5, I'm going to charge you an hourly rate of $185. If
I
you want a
love that.
Saturday meeting, it's double time. So I've had people go, don't you think? I said, listen, it's a $300,000 project. Do you think $285 or $185 is going to make or break this project? Well, no. So why are you charging it? So that we maximize 8 to 5.
Yes.
I want you to maximize my time because I care about your time and your project. All I'm asking you is care is mine. I will never, most likely, ever charge anybody an hourly rate for answering my call.
Yeah.
But you know now how important that call must be to call me. And they always laugh and giggle. I only had one client. Me and Brian Davis were there together. He didn't hire me because his wife started reminding him how he missed his first kid's when the first kid was born.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I think I got him in trouble with his wife that day explaining myself. So I didn't get that project. But let's go into the next part of this, man. I love that work-life balance thing, man, and the seasons. I think it's important for all entrepreneurs. I'll bring it up on this podcast as many times as I can because your family matters, man. You know, your wife's going to be the one at your bedside, dude. It ain't going to be those clients. Your kids are going to be the only ones that remember the late nights you put in.
For sure.
The clients, man, you know, I've always said, you know, these clients, once their job's done, they very rarely call me after until they need my services again.
It's so true.
They're not calling me to their family barbecue. They're not sending me Christmas cards.
Yeah.
You know, if they find out I died, they might send my wife a letter, right? Yeah. So it's your family and your kids that are going to remember all these things.
I always tell in my coaching program, when I'm teaching these guys how to go out and raise capital for deals and, you know, do everything that I do, I always tell them, you are never going to get a thank you. Okay. I don't care how much money you make an investor. It's the truth. They're always going to say, cool. So what about next quarter?
Right.
What about next year? Let's hit it harder. They're not going to sit back and say thank you. And although, you know, in certain businesses, you might, especially artistic businesses where you got like construction, they might say thank you. But in the investment world, there's an expectation. Like you're just expected to perform. There is no thank you at the end, even though you might be close with them. Ultimately, it's all about performance. And so when you're not performing for them, they're going to find somebody who is. And that kind of ties back to what you're saying is how much time are you investing for them versus your family who are going to love you regardless of how much money you make.
That's so good, man. Y'all rewind that one. Mario's giving us some secrets here today. All right, man. So talk to me about training. Like you're training Muay Thai. And he's not bad. Like he's being humble. Is it you and your brother that are training? Yeah. You guys are gangsters, man. Yeah. I think it's awesome. So, all right, give us some pointers on, you train teams, you have a coaching business, and what was the business again?
Equity Growth is my investment firm.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing. I've got this ecosystem that I'm building out. Okay. I've got the education company in the middle, which is called Real Cash Flow. And that's basically an education company to teach people how to passively invest or actively invest, which is what I do, which is being an operator, right? And then I've got these spokes that circle that education business. The main one is the investment company, which is Equity Growth. And that is essentially a private equity firm where we have passive investors that invest with us to go out and buy these assets and we earn them a return, right? And I love my investors. So I wasn't saying that I don't love them or they don't love me, but ultimately it's a business relationship. I got to make them money, right? And then, so that's the investment firm. And then I've got a dealership, which basically brings homes into our communities and other people's communities, brings homes in, sets them up, and sells them. They also sell existing homes that come back through eviction. So it's essentially like a house flipping business inside of a community.
That's so cool.
For manufactured homes. And then I've got a brokerage, which basically brokers mobile home parks off market in many cases, but it also acts like my acquisition arm. So got kind of these different businesses that all surround the education arm and they all feed each other. Okay. So if we're sourcing a deal to buy and we pass on it, we kick it over to our brokerage and our brokerage finds a better buyer for it. If we're talking to a community owner and they're not ready to sell yet, but they want to infill lots or sell off some of their inventory homes, they kick it over to the dealership. If they need to improve on their skills and they want to scale their business, then they kick it to, then that community owner comes over to the education company. So they all feed each other. Wow. I'm a big believer in niching down.
Mhm.
But once you've niched down and you've been able to be successful at one of them and you want to grow, don't go, and I made this mistake, don't go from, mobile home park investing to, getting into the social media business or a
Right.
marketing company or these other completely separate businesses that have nothing to do with getting into the restaurant business, right? That's what I found is that if you can get really good at something and then find ways to support that business by creating other businesses that not only support yours, but support the public,
Mhm.
you can create a pretty cool ecosystem and you can
Right.
cross market and you can do business in different ways with the same clientele. So
Mm.
that's what I've started doing and it's worked out pretty darn well.
That's awesome. And for the ones that are on my coaching call, we always talk about niche and geography and knowing your client.
For sure.
And that's the perfect thing is like I always use the terminology, chase two rabbits, they both get away. But you catch one, kill it. I mean, this is in that book that we read. So I think that's beautifully said. Like, okay, once you figure out your process systems, now what else in that sphere of influence? I'm going to steal that from you, by the way, that ecosystem terminology, because that's so beautiful. It's like, all right, this is my niche. My niche is this. Now, what can I add to my ecosystem that feeds that niche? So, man, thank you for that. That was a good nugget, man.
Well, look at this too, because if you're in the let's say I'm investing in mobile home parks, right? I have a network that I've built from that. So if I go start a dealership to bring in homes or to sell homes, I can add a lot more value to that business. And I don't have to, yes, I'm going to have to learn some things to grow, to build that business, but it's a lot easier than going into the restaurant business, which is completely new network of clients, completely new network of vendors. If I'm partnering with people to buy mobile home parks, which I do quite a bit within my investment company and the education business, I can add so much more value to them with these other businesses because I've got that ecosystem versus like jumping into all these different industries.
Yeah.
You just get spread really, really thin. I've failed multiple times dabbling. Almost every time I've dabbled in something that I didn't understand, I failed at it.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. Don't dabble.
Don't
Go
dabble.
all in.
Let me give you another example. Somebody says, I want to start investing in real estate. They figure out one property type they want to invest in. And then they hear another person who's doing really good, like give you an example, like, oh, I want to buy apartments. Cool. And then they start hearing about mobile home parks. It's like, oh, sweet. I want to look at those too. And I'm going to take this course on this. Then, oh, storage is the next hottest thing. There's always a trend where all these people are getting into. So they never actually get good at anything because every year they're changing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And instead just pick something and get really good at it.
Yeah.
You can't become an expert at something in under, call it 5 years, 10 years, you're an expert at something. You're an expert. But, a lot of people want to also try and coach a year into doing something. They start doing something like, man, I want to start teaching this now. I'm going to go start doing coaching and consulting. It's like, man, you don't even know what you don't know yet. Like, you shouldn't be teaching something unless you've been doing it for 10 years, is my opinion.
Me nuts.
10 years, you can start teaching it. Before that, you don't know enough to teach.
It's like you got these, oh Lord, get me off my soapbox. But they got, and like I said, I coach, but I prefer to coach people that are in the trades.
Sure.
Why? Because that's what I've known my whole life.
Yeah,
I've started at the broom.
Yeah.
I know every aspect. Why did this work for you? I'm going to tell you why it worked for you. You told me why it worked for you. Your dad was in construction. You started your second company. You've seen other people work it. You already had an understanding of it so that you went into it. Now here you are, decade later, rocking and rolling and teaching. And that's what irritates me is these individuals that are talking about cheat codes. There is no cheat code.
No cheat codes.
There's massive action behind basic principles. And the only way to create the basic principles and to flourish with them is to learn from other people's mistakes if you're smart enough to pay for a mastermind.
Yes.
Or deal with them yourself and then put massive action behind the basic principles. And that takes 60 months. I don't care who you are. Anyways, I'm not going to get on that. So
how do you feel about this topic?
Oh my God. Well, it just irritates me because it's like, there's oh, I got a John Maxwell class. I went to a Tony Robinson concert or a conference. And
I flipped 3 houses and now I'm going to teach you for $1,000 how to do the same. It's like, man, you don't even know what you're doing
Well,
yet.
what happens is the guys that like you and I that necessarily, the beautiful thing about my coaching is it's just, like my main course is my construction and it feeds me very well.
Yeah.
So like the coaching and stuff is my passion and I want to bless and I mean, obviously I'm making money for it.
Yeah.
But you got these guys that are doing these $1,000 courses that went to Tony Robinson conference or a John Maxwell course that's, $4,000 or flip 3 houses. And then they try to teach someone this stuff. And then now you just ruined a potential entrepreneur or client who's now like, I'm never going to buy those fake gurus again. And then it stops the ability to pour into people.
They're living on it.
Yeah. All right. So training, man, let's go back to training. So you're trained. Tell us why it's important that you're at the gym. Why is it important to you? That, I mean, you don't look like a guy who's going to come up and sucker punch someone. You don't like, but you're at a Muay Thai gym. Like for those who don't know what Muay Thai is, go ahead and Google it and look at what they do at a Muay Thai place. So why is trainings important to you?
Honestly, the reason I started doing, I grew up in martial arts.
Okay.
I grew up, karate, taekwondo. I wrestled all the way through junior high and high school. After that, I took a break. I got lazy and my brother started training. My brother was a better wrestler than me. He was state champ and stuff. And so younger brother too. So it's kind of, ego hit when your little brother can beat you. But anyway, so he started training at your gym and he's like, man, I've been doing this for a while. It's fun. It's kind of getting me back into that wrestling hardcore workout mode. And so the initial reason why I did it was it gave me an opportunity to do something with my brother that we both enjoyed and had in common. And so it's been kind of a friendship builder for my brother and I. But I find that workout on a couple times a week, I'm not doing it daily because I'm not training for fights, but the two trainings I do per week resets me mentally.
Mm-hmm.
It lets me just burn out completely to the point where I'm able to clear my mind, get super drained, start fresh. I sleep better from it. And it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
I can tell now at turning 40 this year that my body doesn't twist in the same exact ways that it used to as a high school wrestler. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of bringing me back to that flexibility and bringing me back to that intensity that I had growing up. So I have a lot of fun with it. I also enjoy meeting the people at the gym. There's some really high performers there. I'm probably not getting into a ring and fighting anybody anytime soon, but it's intense. It's a really tough challenge.
Yeah.
I like.
And I think that clearing the mind is great. When you're pushing your body to those extremes, for an hour, you don't have time to think about the client or the next deal. It just really clears it. And I know that's one of the things that I love the most. And I have a gym at the house too in my garage, and I just love to go on there and blast either some Christian hip hop or some worship, man, and just like push I got a band that tells you like where you're at. Like there's like blue, green, yellow, and red. And like, I want to get into that red every once in a while, and it's like, it's that push, man. And I can't focus on anything other than wanting to get to that red. Like, do I need to do 10 more squats, whatever it is? And it's like, that's all you're focused on. And then when you're a healthier version of you, I'm a better father. I'm a better employer. I'm not wanting to bite people as quick.
Less stressed out. Lets you burn off some steam. I think too, the seeing the improvement as entrepreneurs, we're always looking to grow, right? We're always looking to build something out. And it's given me the opportunity to see the improvement over the last year and a half or so.
No, I love that part too. Yeah, I was telling.
And I get to punch my brother in the face.
Yeah, that's awesome right there. It's like, I'm getting you this round. And that's what's cool about sparring too, is like, you're not trying to kill each other. And for those who don't know, it's like, if you're looking to do something and stay in shape, like go look at a gym, because people are very respectful, right? I mean, there's always that one guy in the gym that goes hard and you just stay away from him, right?
Yes.
But the better fighters, the ones that are really good, are usually the most respectful, kindest.
They match your level.
They match your level. They let you catch them. You know what I mean? So it's actually a lot more fun than people can imagine. Like, oh my God, I'm gonna go in here not knowing nothing, and this guy's just gonna beat me up. And it's like, no, it's really not that way. And if that guy's in there, he usually don't last long. People kind of stay away from him. But Well, we're gonna end it, man. So, what would be your message to the world, man? Like, if you could talk to the high school sophomore getting high, running amok, what would you say to that guy? Like, if you could just impart some wisdom, and give us an uppercut, no pressure.
No pressure. Life. I just needed a life-changing message to end this discussion. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think what I didn't have was direction. I didn't have a vision for where I wanted to go. And I believe vision comes from God, right? So number one, and not to get preachy, but know who your source is. And when I figured out who my source was, then I took a lot of that off of my shoulders and basically said, okay, what do you want? Right. So and then, so understanding your vision of where you want to be. If you don't have a vision, for lack of vision, people perish, right?
Yeah.
The people perish. So basically, if you don't have a vision of where you want to be, everybody else is going to set your vision for you. You talked about employers, right? If you don't have the confidence in your ability, you're essentially putting confidence in somebody else's ability. So recognize also, if you don't have a vision, you're putting somebody else's vision over your life.
That's
okay.
it.
So if you're young and you're kind of trying to figure out where you're going to go, number one, don't stress it. Number two, look at the big picture and not so much short term. Like for me, I wanted to be, I'm not going to lie. The cars, the homes, the planes, all that kind of stuff, that hooked me. Okay. The guys that I was working with had baller lifestyles, and I wanted that. And I don't have any problem with that. That was the attraction, okay, for why I wanted to become an entrepreneur and work with the people I worked with. Thankfully, the people that I was getting connected with in that first business had a very good relationship with God, and they were Christians. And so that actually was what, growing up, not to get super deep and go off on a tangent here, but growing up in a Catholic home, a Catholic school, not to dog Catholics, but I definitely was turned off from religion. Okay. And so that's where I kind of went down that crazy path and was anti-faith, anti-church, and more importantly, anti-religion. So getting around people who are living the lifestyle that I wanted to live, and then be like, oh, their foundation is actually in Jesus. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is way different than I expected. So without going too far down that rabbit hole, it allowed me to recognize, hey, this is where I want to be lifestyle. But then I realized that there was a much better foundation to all of that, and that their head was right on what they were doing. And so find your vision, figure out where you're going with it, and then find other people who are already where you want to be and learn from them.
That's so good.
Like if you look around, and you kind of talked about this before, if your buddies are dealing drugs and they're getting raided, which is like what was happening to my friends, literally in high school, they're getting raided and they're, getting on some pretty crazy drugs. I was like, okay, wait a minute. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got to stop for a second. You gotta go, okay, this is my vision. This is who I'm hanging out with. This is what I'm doing. Is this getting me there? No, then we've got to detour and get around the people who are where you want to be and start copying what they're doing. And there's, in my first business that I was in, we used to always use the term, you've got copyrights. You have the right to copy what other people are doing if it gets the results. Amen. And be cool with that. Like, don't think that if you're going to start a business and this is going to get you to where you want to go, you have to be this crazy visionary with all this creativity. Like, find systems that work, duplicate them, get in the masterminds, get in the education. But I think know where you want to go, get with people who are doing it already.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you for that, man. And there's nothing new under the sun. I promise you're not the first one to think of it. So even people that think they're being innovative, it's came from somewhere. But yeah, that's one of my favorite verses when I do group coaching or I'm on a sales call to get someone on group coach. That's the verse that I use.
Yeah.
All right, you're an entrepreneur. What's your vision?
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? I want to get rich. Okay. How are you getting there?
Yeah.
What does that look like? What does rich look like? Rich
Be
in what?
specific.
Yeah. Rich in time.
This guy used to drive me nuts when I was in my first business, he'd always go, if you want to be terrific, you got to be specific. And I just go, it was so annoying how he say it, but it's so true. Like you've got to be very specific on what you want or you're going to get something else.
That's it. So true. All right, man. Well, how can they find you? Where do they find you on social media and YouTube, man?
Yeah, just Mario Dattilo. If you just search me, you'll find me. But you can go to getrealcashflow.com if you want to learn how to be an active or passive investor. And love to help anybody in any way that I can. And this has been an awesome show. This has been a lot of fun because I think we really covered business, but we covered a lot of deeper personal stuff too. So I like getting out of just that business box and hanging out with you.
Well, I just really believe that it's a time of authenticity. This world is starving for authenticity.
For sure.
So if we can just get on here and be us, man, and I think we're going to impact, or I know we're going to impact the world.
You're doing a good thing with this show. So thank you.
Man. You got it, brother. All right, guys. Thank you again for joining John Huffman Speaks, the fourth episode. Share this, like it, do all that fun stuff. We love you guys.